So today I'm wearing a black leather jacket, I'm wearing a black t-shirt, a light blue pair of jeans, I have black leather shoes, I have my red shades on, I have long curly dark hair, and I'm standing on this beautiful stage with red and black background behind me, and the TEDx logo to my right, and the OsloMet logo to my left. And you, right now, are sitting and wondering and thinking, why on earth are you describing yourself? Gagan, we are able to see you. You're right, you're able to see me. But the reason why I'm describing myself to you all is because I want to be inclusive. I want to be inclusive for individuals who are blind and partially sighted or visually impaired like myself. I'm blind, I'm 35 years old, I'm a Norwegian citizen of Indian descent, and I got my PhD in disability research domain from the Oslo Metropolitan University. And you might be thinking, what am I going to speak today? I'm going to speak about a lesser known ism today with all of you. You might have heard the term racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, right? But have you heard the term ableism? You might be thinking, oh, another ism in the town? I need a break. Please, give me a break. Give me like 15 minutes and perhaps you'll think why this ism is so important and so crucial for your life. And you might think, what does it mean, Gagan? Let's start with the definition. So, ableism in simple terms means prejudice or discrimination against an individual simply based on the fact that the individual has some kind of a disability. He or she is classified as disabled, either as a physical impairment or a mental impairment, a visible impairment or an invisible impairment. Mouthful, right? Right. Well, you might say, Gagan, who has visible impairment? Give us some examples. A person like me, walking on a sidewalk with a long white cane, and you look at me and you say, there is a guy, blind, I can see, he has an impairment, got it. What about invisible impairment? Perhaps someone like you, who's sitting in the crowd right now, who has mental health conditions, depression, anxiety, epilepsy, musculoskeletal disorder, perhaps who has deafness or hard of hearing issues, the ones which is not visible. So it's a very universal thing. Now, before we take a deep dive into what ableism is, what are the contours of ableism, and how do we overcome ableism, I would like to give or share 3 anecdotes from my life at Oslo and OsloMet. Are you ready for some of them? Oh, I like that sound. Great. So imagine a couple of years ago in springtime, it's beautiful weather, sun is shining, I finished my work at OsloMet and I go to the familiar tram stop which is outside OsloMet. And I'm standing for my tram. And what do I hear? I hear a tram approaching. But I know it's not my tram because it's the old one, it's the rickety one, it makes a lot of noise, it's tram number 11. So I decide, okay, I'm going to stand there, enjoy myself and the sunshine. When the tram pulls over, what happens? I suddenly feel a gentle shove on my left arm. And I look around and I look at this nice, kind, gentle soul. He's taken my arm and he's pushing me into the tram. And I say to him, excuse me, sir, what's happening? And he says, tram is here, we have to take the tram. And I'm like, when did I become we? Perhaps you, sir, have to take the tram. And then he got a bit confused. And he said to me, oh, I thought that I should be helping you to take the tram. And I'm like, no, this is not my tram. So I waved him goodbye. I thanked him for his help. And then he left. I thought, why did he think that I needed to be helped? Why did he have such lowered expectations about me and my capabilities to take the tram independently? Is it my long white cane? Is it my long dark hair? Has it been a long day for him? Or perhaps he just needed my company. Who knows? Never found out. 3 weeks later, I decided I don't want to go to the cafeteria and eat the same old food. I want to take a sandwich. So what I do, I cross over the street, enter the sandwich store, take the 5 steps, order a sandwich, and I'm standing there waiting for my sandwich. And the curious lady behind the counter says to me, I have seen you walk around here in this neighborhood a couple of times before. What do you do? I said, of course, yeah, like I work at the Oslo Metropolitan University. I'm like a PhD research fellow. And the moment I said that, I heard a gasp. And suddenly the conversation took an unexpected turn. And she started using the word, wow, wow, wow. And I started thinking, why? And she showered me with a lot of generous compliments saying that, oh, I'm so happy that you have a job. It's great that you have a job. And I was just waiting for my sandwich to come. So who knew that being blind and having a job could be that inspiring for individuals? And then I get my delicious sandwich. I am already having a little bad taste in my mouth because of all the generous compliments which I did not deserve. And then I have to leave this spot. So I start walking back, and guess what? Those 5 steps came back again, the one which I took 5 minutes ago. So the moment I reached the steps, the kind lady yelled out, be careful on those steps. And I'm like, just 10 seconds ago, I was the one who was inspiring you so much with my PhD research fellowship. And now you're having again the lowered expectations that I cannot take the steps which I took 5 minutes ago. So I'm like, okay, I move on. 2021 comes, I finish my PhD, I publish my research papers, I have written a lot about ableism in Norway, and I get featured in what? As a cover story in one of the popular disability magazine, Handicap Nytt. And when this comes out, people ask me, is this a Rolling Stone cover or is it a disability magazine cover? And I'm like, I take 2 steps back and I ask that perhaps they have an assumption of how disability magazines should look like or how people with disabilities are. I went to a lot of social gatherings after the PhD got over, and one of those gatherings, I'm standing with my white cane, a gentleman approaches towards me and says, hi. I'm like, hi. Like, are you really blind? I'm like, that's a conversation starter. You don't look blind. And what is that thing you're holding in your hand? I'm like, no, actually, you know what? I'm not really blind, but, you know, like I'm using my long white cane because it goes so well with my long dark hair, and it's a fashion statement. And we all laughed, we continued the party, and it went on. And now you might be wondering that why am I telling you these anecdotes and what has that to do with ableism? If you think a little deeply, you will understand that all those individuals, the non-disabled individuals, they assumed things about me, judged me even before engaging with me. So what ableism generally does is it objectifies. It objectifies individuals either as a tragic victim or as an inspiring hero. The non-disabled individual, one of you might be looking at a disabled person, and in your head or heart, you might think, oh, this person might be passive, dependent, childlike, asexual, weak, incompetent, needs to be taken care of. Or you might look at that disabled person and say, this person is inspiring, brave, courageous, plucky, resilient. So I shared these anecdotes from Norway. But as I mentioned to you, I was born in India, raised in India, and what happened in the Indian context was something quite interesting. That my visual impairment was explained in the form of my bad karma from my previous birth. So then they would say, Gagan, I think you did something really bad in your previous birth. That's why you are blind. So I feel sorry for you. You are an object of charity. Let me put you into the bucket of tragic victim. Or there were other individuals who said, this person is blind. He is gifted. He is special. They put me on the pedestal of divinely inspired individual. In both those instances, in the Indian context, what happened is either I became a subhuman Or I became a superhuman, but never an ordinary human. And this objectification of an individual as an object of inspiration is what, this might be a word which you might like, inspiration porn. The non-disabled society members look at the disabled people and say, yeah, I want to be inspired. Stella Young, great speech, TEDx. So you might be wondering, Gagan, I understand. I'm really sorry that you encountered ableism in Norway, you encountered ableism in India, but this does not jive with me. This does not resonate with me. Why should I be bothered about ableism? Do you know how many people with disabilities are there across the globe? This figure might surprise some of you. 1 billion people across the globe or more right now have some kind of a disability. 15% of the world's population has a disability. 1 out of 7 persons whom you would encounter in your life has some kind of a disability, visible or invisible. 800 million of them, these people, live in the global south. And there's one common factor, common barrier, which all these individuals from Norway to India, from United States to Uganda encounter. That's what? You have guessed it right. Ableism, discrimination, in some way, shape, or form. You must still say to me, Gagan, we are in Oslo, we are in Norway, we are so privileged. Come on. Ableism? Yes, you're right. We're very privileged. We were ranked #1 on the Human Development Index in 2019. We are quite privileged. We spend 4.3% of our GDP on disability protection, one of the highest in the world. Still, the 17.6% of the population which is disabled in Norway, in some way, shape, or form encounters ableism or discrimination if you talk to them. You might be saying, Gagan, I understand, but still I'm not 100% convinced. What I want you to remember or understand is that disability is far more universal than what you expect or accept. We all know of individuals who have an impairment. We all know of that grandfather who is slowly slipping into dementia. We all know of a cousin who has an extra chromosome. We all know of that party-going friend who took 1 extra drink, took that electric scooter, got injured, got into an accident, and has a disability now. We hear those stories all the time. So disability could happen out of injuries, accidents, wars, and conflicts, what's happening in Ukraine, the tragic situation. It could happen out of chance. It could happen out of aging. Yes, you have heard it right. I use the word aging. We all are going to grow old, right? I've often said, if we are lucky enough to live long enough, then there's a high chance we will board the Disability Express, or we would check into hotel disability. And if that happens, wouldn't we want to live in a Norway which is more inclusive and less ableist? And I ask that question, you're like, of course, Gagan, yes, we want to do that. But why on earth does the ableism happen in the first place? Explain us. So there are many reasons for ableism to take place, but one of the major reasons is that we construct strict binaries. We say healthy and sick, productive and unproductive, independent and dependent, non-disabled and disabled, and species typical and species deviant. And when we create those binaries, what we are essentially doing is we are making sure that we perpetuate the able-bodied norms. One thing which the COVID-19 pandemic has taught all of us is it has brought us face to face with our questions of morbidity and mortality. It has reminded us that we could be healthy, strong, resilient, productive right now, today. Tomorrow we get that virus. Some of us become severely sick. Some of us get hospitalized. Some of us are so badly sick that we end up knocking on death's door. So that's why what we all have to understand or appreciate is that we all are temporarily able-bodied individuals. Our biologies, our psychologies, our physiologies all are in a constant state of flux. Back in the day, the good old Greek philosopher Heraclitus said that you don't step into the same river twice. He was right. Nature changes, life changes, our bodies change. That's why we should not be prisoners of the binaries. We should not subjugate ourselves to the tyranny of normalcy. This is a normal student. This is a normal employee. This is a normal life. No. We should rid ourselves from that. Now, you might be asking me, Gagan, okay, got it. You made a strong case about ableism. Yes, it resonates with me now a little bit more. But what are the elements of ableism? I'll give you the A, B, C of ableism. Ableism, the A element is the element of affect, emotion. You remember that response which that individual had, the sense of pity and sympathy and compassion, the kind soul at the tram stop? He did it out of goodwill. That's the emotional impulsive response. What's the behavior? Behavior refers to the fact that how individuals who are non-disabled, when they look at a person who's disabled, they might end up avoiding them, not engaging with them. You look at an individual who's wheeling down on a wheelchair, sidewalk, outside OsloMet, and then you say, oh, let me just cross over, I don't want to engage. And then at the cognition level, there are stereotypes, generalization. Gagan, you are blind. You must have a great taste in music. Perhaps, perhaps not. So it's important to appreciate these ABCs of ableism. And then now you would wonder that on which levels does ableism manifest? Ableism manifests at 3 levels in society. It is an individual level, an institutional level, and an internalized level. At the individual level, interpersonal level, we all know that we have our conscious and unconscious biases. We knowingly or unknowingly engage in actions or behavior which are discriminatory or ableist. We don't do it on purpose. You remember that very kind, curious lady at the sandwich store who just yelled out, be careful on those steps, because I don't think that she woke up that morning and said, I want to be a little ableist today. Nobody does that. But it happens because we have this conscious and unconscious biases. At an institutional level, there are systems, processes, structures, which implicitly or explicitly might either discriminate against persons with disabilities, exclude them, or victimize them or valorize them. Like public bureaucrats, city council members might just assume that if you're severely disabled, if you're on a wheelchair, then perhaps you don't use the parks. You don't use recreational services. And if they think and assume that, then they would not make the budgets, they would not make the allocations for investing in accessibility and universal design. And at an internalized level, the conversation is a little bit more subtle. What happens is, think about this, for far too long, thousands of years, persons with disabilities have been excluded, oppressed, marginalized, and forgotten. The society has told them that you are not worthy enough. You are not equal enough. You don't deserve all those rights. And what has happened is that over the course of the history, these values, these attitudes have been internalized. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. I am not sufficient enough with my ambitions. So these are the 3 levels on which ableism manifests. But now I could stop here and make you cry, and then you would be okay, Gagan did a good job. But the important thing is that this is the moment of sense of hope. We've got to find a way to overcome ableism. And how do we overcome ableism? The first step of overcoming ableism is to acknowledge that it exists, is to acknowledge that we construct binaries, is to acknowledge that we have conscious and unconscious biases, is to acknowledge that we subjugate other individuals and ourselves to the tyranny of normalcy. The next step, after we've acknowledged that, is to, in our individual interpersonal interactions, don't judge the book by its cover. Please ask and don't assume. Could you imagine how nice, the pleasant, or amazing the conversation would have been if the kind, gentle soul on the tram stop would have asked, do you want to be helped? Is this the tram you're going to take? That awkward moment would not have come. We all swim in the sea of ignorance, spurious assumptions, and misconceptions all the time. And what we need is a much more open-minded, inclusive, and empathic dialogue. with each other. At an institutional level, you could combat ableism, you could overcome ableism by investing more in systems and processes and structures which are more accessible, like ramps, like screen reading softwares, universal design solutions for products and services which could be used by all, irrespective of their ability status. Because as I mentioned, after all, we all are getting old. At an internalized level, persons with disabilities have to come together, mobilize, and tell a narrative to themselves and to the rest of the globe that they are worthy enough, they are good enough, they are equal enough, they have equal human dignity and equal human rights. And remind everybody that we are all temporarily able-bodied individuals. So if we take the approach that disability is part of human condition, it's quite universal. Persons with disabilities are part of human diversity. Doesn't matter your age, gender, sexual orientation, the national background, the socioeconomic class, your linguistic preference, there's a chance you can be disabled. And at the end of the day, all of us are striving towards human flourishing, right? We have to remember that in this beautiful lifetime, we could be resilient and vulnerable, we could be healthy and sick, we could be productive and unproductive, and we could be non-disabled and disabled. So that's why it's so important to build a society which is inclusive. That's why it's so important to combat ableism. I'm still wearing that black leather jacket. I still have my red shades. I have my long, dark, curly hair. And I would like to invite all of you to something exciting. Want to guess what? Let's go on a blind date. And let's challenge our blind spots about disability. And let's create an inclusive society wherein we see each other better, wherein we treat each other better. Shall we? Thank you.